Hello and welcome to another edition of Osceola Chat. My name is Pat Burnham and I'm joined today by the owner of the Osceola, Jerry Cutts, and our managing editor, Bob Ferrante. Our special guest today is FSU Director of Strength and Conditioning, Josh Storms. Coach, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. We know you guys still have a lot going on from a staff standpoint, still meeting daily with staff meetings. And of course, I'm sure you're still, working with your kids. But before we get started on the football and strength and conditioning end, just want to talk to you about how you and your family are dealing with the quarantine and what the advantages are as a husband and a father to having some more time at home.
Yeah. I mean, the time at home is especially a big change for us coming off of, the end of last season. I was here in Tallahassee about 12 hours after the Cotton Bowl ended, being apart for a while, getting to a new place, getting them here, adjusting to a new surrounding. So there hasn't been a whole lot of at home time in a good stretch now. So be able to have that time has been great. Been trying to structure, my work day as close as I can around my son's kindergarten schedule inside. That's why I'm set up out here outside right now. And, try to schedule breaks in my days. We're trying to keep his school schedule the same as it normally would be. So when recess rolls around, him and I will go out and have recess and try to have lunch together and breakfast. And then I'll work the rest of my day with, Zoom calls and phone calls and some of the education stuff we're doing kind of the rest of the day around that, and try to wrap it up at a normal time, try to start my day kind of at a usual time, but just be able to take those breaks in the day and be around the family and stuff has been awesome.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the strength and conditioning part and how what's going on with COVID-19 has affected the FSU football team and the way you're able to work with them, tell us a little bit about your path to Florida State. You played football at South Dakota. Tell us a little bit about what led. Most of our subscribers probably don't know. So give us a little bit about your background and your path in strength and conditioning. I know you were a recreation major at South Dakota, and most people don't associate recreation and strength and conditioning programs.
No, so going all the way back, growing up being an athlete, I was a tall but undersized kid, started training pretty young. I knew for me personally, just with my body type, that was a key to me having any chance to compete at any level whatsoever. So, grew up around gyms and in that environment and stuff. Football as a young kid through high school, into college, pretty short, injury-plagued, unremarkable college football career, which is probably kind of what led me to do what I'm doing. But, as I came to the end of that, though, I realized kind of, I knew how much I love football and how important being around that game was to me. But I also knew kind of where my biggest passion lied was in the preparation to play the game. And so that's kind of what I gravitated towards. There at South Dakota, with the recreation degree, basically had it was like an umbrella term for basically three different degrees. And there's basically you had three really, really unrelated degree tracks under there. But with my track that was in there, we still had, was really anatomy and physiology based, still had, cadaver lab, still had all those things. It's unfortunate it's named what it is because it sounds exactly like what it sounds like. It's recreation and walking for fitness and enjoying the park. But, in my time there, I knew kind of what I wanted to pursue. So I had some time one summer. I was living in Sioux Falls, wanted to get some experience. Went to a private facility up there that was based through the hospital system there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and was fortunate enough to meet a guy named Steve Bliss. And don't know, how well a lot of people know the, kind of the history of our business and strength and conditioning. But Steve was part of Boyd Epley's original crew at the University of Nebraska that was there when this, essentially when this profession started. He was the first ever strength coach at Miami, the first ever strength coach at Ohio State. And when I met him, he was, had just transitioned out of college into a private setting. And so that he was able to give me a ton of unbelievable insight on just the business and what it means to be a college strength coach. And just, through complete dumb luck, was able to meet him and help get me started. From there, I, once again, not having the best direction in the world, I sent out, I needed to do an internship for school. So when I was done with that volunteer experience, I needed to do an internship for credit. Sent two resumes out, one to the Kansas City Chiefs, one to the Minnesota Vikings. Basically, I interviewed for both those, was offered both, took the one in Minnesota. I'd grown up a Vikings fan, so how was I not going to go up there and take that? So that year when spring break hit and everybody's off to warm weather climates, I went up there to stay in an extended stay and work OTAs, and went back, finished the semester at school, and went back up there in the summer for the NFL off-season program. Transitioned then into a paid position during the in-season. And that would have been 2001, which would have been Dennis Green's final season there. After that, that season, he was let go at the end of that season, so we all kind of split our different ways. I knew that grad school was going to have to be my next step to ultimately get where I wanted to be. So kind of the way I went about that was I didn't pick a grad school based upon the academics. I found a strength program that I wanted to be part of that would allow me to be part of it, and then applied to grad school at that point. So I went to UNLV basically on the recommendation from quite a few of our players with the Vikings that worked with Mark Philippi in the offseason. And had been told 100 times while I was there, like, man, you got to go learn from this guy. He's the best. They all had spoke extremely highly of him. And, the only thing I knew about Mark Philippi at that point was what I'd seen on World's Strongest Man on ESPN2. So basically reached out, found his number, early days of the internet, called him, asked to come out and be part of it. He basically was kind enough to let me volunteer in the program. So basically a week after my wife and I got married, we moved to Vegas with no jobs and no anything other than a place I was going to volunteer for free, and nobody ever mentioned to us that was probably a bad idea. So got there, was volunteering in the weight room, taking some classes, had 2 jobs on the side to try to make ends meet a little bit. Lots of, catching an hour of sleep here and there during the day in my truck, trying to make those days all link together. I was out of my house at, 3:15 in the morning and typically getting back at, 7 or 8 at night, balancing all that out. And over time, kind of pared down, was able to get rid of some of those side jobs, got a GA in the XFIZ department, position in the weight room became paid. Eventually that took over everything. And then as I was about done with my master's there, I got the job at Arizona State. Went there, worked for Joe Ken. That was on Dirk Cutter's football staff originally. And then I was kind of an atypical path from this point on the profession, in that I was at Arizona State for 11 seasons, with Dirk Cutter's football staff, all the way through Dennis Erickson's staff, and then eventually with Todd Graham's staff, where Coach Norvell and I got together.
And how did kind of that relationship come together between you and Coach Norvell, which led you to Memphis and ultimately to Tallahassee?
Yeah, when that staff came in, a lot of changes. I was able to be retained and kind of elevate my role in the program on that staff, and Coach and I were hit it off with a good relationship early on. I think because we were wired similar. Just watching how he coached the guys and the things that were important to him and the players that he coached there, and then what he was trying to instill in our offense, and then there's the way that I'm wired as a coach and what I think is the right way to do things. I think him and I had a lot of parallels in our thought process, and so we got along pretty well early on with that deal, and then kind of just knew it was just a matter of time before he eventually found a spot that he felt was a good fit and a good opportunity. And in 2015, that was the University of Memphis.
Now, when you were at UNLV as a graduate assistant, did you ever envision yourself as the head strength coach at Florida State University?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was just happy to be where I was at. And to be honest, I was too busy what I was doing to think very far ahead other than just the next step and the next day.
Well, you guys, if we were on schedule and we were in school, you guys would be in the middle of spring practice. Kind of what would the kids be doing now if it was a normal, as far as workouts and things of that nature during spring practice? What would that look like as opposed to what you are doing now with the kids?
Yep. Well, today being a Tuesday, we'd actually be on the practice. Let's see, was it 11:30? We'd be just getting off the practice field right now. Basically, what our spring schedule works out is we practice on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and then we will still train on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Kind of our plan training-wise during spring ball is a little bit of a modified version between what we would typically do in season and still keeping some pretty heavy training loads like we would touch out of season, with the ultimate goal of being ready to play ball in August, which means we had to stay heavy and train through spring still pretty hard. instead of that, since we're here, I'm out here on my back porch and got a list of some education stuff to do today. Finished up a staff meeting this morning, and then I got a big list of guys that I'm going to reach out to and contact today, and just check in on them and their families and academics, and just basically a mental health check for them and me. I mean, you get used to being around these guys day in, day out, and all of a sudden now we're going on a month, and I haven't got to see these guys face to face other than the way we are right now.
Jerry.
Yeah, Josh, let me take you back to Boyd Epley. Your early influence was a disciple of Boyd Epley's from Nebraska, from Husker Strength.
Yep, pretty fortunate to completely by happenstance to meet Coach Bliss to learn from.
So I had the opportunity to tour Nebraska back in '82, '84, somewhere in that time frame, when Boyd was doing big Husker Power programs. What are some of the things that Epley stressed that Bliss carried forward that's influenced you specifically?
It's kind of funny now. It seems like such a normal thing, but at that time it wasn't such a standard deal. But that's basing your program around the big compound barbell lifts, generating force with your feet in the ground, keeping an eye towards the actual metabolic conditioning needs of the sport as opposed to just conditioning for the sake of conditioning.
Epley, when he first got that job, but the head coach there at the time, Tom Osborne. Tom had been playing around with as a strength coach prior to Epley, and they had when I went out there, they had the original machine that players could lift with. And it's hard to believe that strength and conditioning got started really in the 70s,
Yeah. It still is a very, very young profession when you most people can point to where it started and when it started. And, you got a few, outliers here and there where they'll say, well, there's a guy here, there's training guys before then. But I think really most people would agree that, college strength and conditioning as we know it, that's the origin is right there in Lincoln, Nebraska. And to have been able to be mentored by a guy that was there in the beginning was pretty invaluable for my career at a young age, and maybe didn't even realize it then until having the years in the business now. And you can look back 20 plus years and realize how important that was in aiming your compass the right direction at that time.
Well, Coach, you mentioned that you were missing the face-to-face time with the kids, and obviously there's a lot.
The reason I was,
you help create the culture of the program, especially when it's new. How big a challenge is this for you guys as a new program, as the new strength coach, and what are some of the things you guys are doing to try to overcome that?
I've spent a lot of time looking at what situation would be better or worse right now. Going through this when you're 11 weeks into a new program, or if you were several years established into doing what you do. For us, I think kind of what helps us right now is that the program is new and the culture is new, and those guys are just starting to see the tip of the iceberg of what that culture is going to return back to them, whether it be in how their bodies have changed, or how they feel running around the field, or just the structure of the academics and what that's helping those guys do in their classes, whatever that may be. It's new and it's exciting. They've got enough of a taste of it now to where we're at the point where that's a team of guys that wants more and is eager for more. And so right now, we're counting on that hunger to provide the motivation to take us through this time, whether it be for one more week or one more month, or who knows when we come to the end of this.
Well, what exactly are you allowed? What is your interaction? What does NCAA allow? Are the players having to call you? Are you allowed to have group chats with them?
So we can contact the guys as much as we want. The thing is though, any work done off campus right now, whether it be lifting, whether it be conditioning, whether it be field work, whether it be football work, that's 100% voluntary. So basically, this time of year right now, even though the situation is different, is basically treated just like a normal discretionary week during the rest of the year. So, we can't require the guys to check back in with workouts. We can't do those things. We still have a lot of guys reaching out to us, or they're posting videos about what they're doing, and that's awesome for me to see, because I'm used to being in that environment every day. And now, like, I find myself scrolling Twitter and scrolling Instagram and getting fired up seeing guys doing what they're doing. But for us, it's just reaching out and contacting these guys, just making sure they have what they need to be successful. We'll have guys whose training situations have changed. They had a high school gym when they first got home, and a week into that, get a call like, "Coach, hey, my high school coach called me tonight. They're shutting down tomorrow. I got nothing." Okay, well, here you go. I'm gonna send a plan to you right now that you can stay on track. And then, a week into that same guy calls back, "Hey, I found a guy 4 houses down from us that has a garage gym. He doesn't have everything, but he's got these things." Okay, cool. Let's modify your plan now to maximize what you can do with what you have. And so it's been a lot of that, talking to individuals. Everybody's situation is completely different right now. So it's just a matter of us trying to give them the right information and tools to be successful right now. We got those guys set up, working with Marissa, our dietitian, got those guys set up with a meal delivery service to help them out with some meals during the week, making sure their nutrition stays on point, to make sure we're maintaining those gains we saw in the off season and whatnot. So like I said, we're trying to do everything we can do within the letter of the law to make sure we can stay on track and be successful right now.
Now, you mentioned obviously having to get creative, and you're pretty active on Twitter. We've seen some of your examples of working out with the gallon jugs and that thing. Have you had players that have had to get creative like that because you said lack of equipment? I mean, do you have players that are using cinder blocks? And
yeah, I mean, I've seen cinder blocks. I've seen propane cylinders. I've seen the big 5-gallon jugs of water. You got guys down, running the dikes, and guys have found some sand hills and stuff like that. So, one of the big things we talked about is, like, you're gonna have to get out. You're gonna have to be creative. Go out in your neighborhood, go around your town, find a hill. I mean, that was, Walter Payton, that was his bread and butter of his off-season training, was hill sprints. Okay. Well, now's a great time to take an old school approach and do that. And so, I've seen guys posting the hills they've found, or driving around and hanging the phone out the window like, "I'm coming back here later today," and things like that. And it's just encouraging guys to be creative, to not overthink it because you don't have everything that you're used to, and don't waste time focusing right now on the barriers and the things you don't have, but instead let's focus on what you can do and what we do have, and let's maximize that.
Well, Coach, you've mentioned mental health, and obviously we're talking about physical health, but I don't think a lot of people understand how closely a strength coach works with the dietitian, the team dietitian. You've got guys that need to gain weight. You guys that need to continue to trim down. How concerned are you with the diet and all the eating programs that your players are on? And how often are you meeting with the diet staff and the players on what they're putting into their bodies?
Yeah. Marissa and I will talk, almost daily right now. She runs an Instagram account for our guys to make sure they're getting all the nutritional information they can get, because we're in a situation right now where we're not there to make them a post-workout shake. And, it's on them to do that. So the biggest thing we can arm them with right now is information. Sending guys home with protein when they left campus. Making sure, like I said, with the meal delivery service, that at least that one meal's covered. We got basically a group chat set up with, like, our priority weight gain and weight loss guys, and there's some daily interaction on there of guys posting meals or posting shakes and things like that. And even simply, like, just, some guys don't have a scale to weigh in on right now, so they got to kind of base it on the mirror and the work they're doing and whatnot. And other guys, they'll have a scale, and they'll send Marissa pictures of their weigh-ins and whatnot. And from all the things I've seen so far, those guys are doing a really, really good job. We got a good veteran group of guys in this team that is learning how to lead, with a desire to be better and to bring this program to where it needs to be. And they've carried over a lot of what they've learned and what they felt in the offseason over this time right now, because they know no matter what goes on right now, that day that we're all coming back is coming, and the day of that first game is coming. And even though the path has changed, the goal remains the same. And if we're staying focused on what the goal is, we'll find a way to make the path work.
Well, you mentioned the discretion. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, Coach, I was going to ask you, obviously one of the hot topics of discussion lately has been, when might college football come back? When might games be played? Could it be pushed to October 1? I guess from your standpoint, I'm curious, would you want more time once you can get guys on campus to prepare them? And maybe how does that preparation change, knowing that these guys have had different workouts, some have been able to do more than others? What's kind of your roadmap for getting these guys prepared for whenever that first game might be?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, when that all clear date is given, that the decision's been made, that it's safe for America to get back out there and start resuming life as usual, I mean, that's 100% out of our control. We can't choose that, and this is an ever-changing situation. And so kind of the approach myself, my staff, and our football staff has taken is let's focus on maximizing today. And, for us, anytime I've heard a date, we're like, hey, maybe by this date. Okay, we're going to have a plan that will start that date. Knowing full well, because it's happened already several times, that you're probably going to crumple that all up and throw it in the trash because that date will change, or the parameters around what we can do will change. And so for us, it's staying prepared for the next opportunity. And then eventually, when the decision's made, we'll respond the right way, and we'll be organized, and we'll have a plan, and we'll get back and get rolling. And whether that's a long window of time, like a normal off season, or a truncated window of time, ultimately that's not going to be our decision. And whatever we're given, we'll go to work to make that happen, and we'll all be in the same boat together on it. We'll find a way to make it work.
Well, Coach, there's going to be this. It's fluid. It's a fluid situation. But you mentioned discretionary weeks and acclimation period. We're football people, creatures of habit. They're used to, you can pretty much plan out your 365 days from January 1st to December 31st before you even get started in the year. How do you set up your calendar now that it's a moving target?
It's exactly that. It's also a moving calendar. We've had plans for May 1st. We've had plans for May 12th. We've had plans for June 1st, for June 22nd, for July 1st. You're going at a moving target. So there's a lot of different plans on place for us. It's a matter of kind of deciding what our training absolutes will be when we get back, regardless of the window of time, whether we have 12, 10, 8, 6, 4 weeks, whatever it may be. Where's the absolute? Where do we have to start at? What do we have to evaluate when guys get back? And then what's the best way to progress from there on whatever the timetable is that we're given? And that might not just be in altering and modifying what we're doing training-wise. In a lot of cases, depending on how soon we're jumping back into football activities, it's going to be progressing that the right way as well. It's not going to be a deal where teams are going to be able to jump back into a standard, 25-period script as soon as we hit the ground back on campus. There's going to have to be a progression back into football, just the way there would be a progression back into training.
Jerry?
Yeah, Josh, how much time do you think you need in order to put the players into practice where they're healthy and safe? What would be the shortest window of time you could really work with?
That's one of those answers where, and I know this is a bad answer, but it's an honest answer. It all depends. It depends on your connection with, from our standpoint in training, it depends on our connection with our football staff and how willing is the football end of things going to be to modify the progression back in. I know there'll be programs out there where there may not be a progression at all. There'll be programs where there's a very long, slow progression and every mix of in between. So, ultimately it's going to be us communicating on both ends of it and what we think is best with whatever the time is we're given, when ultimately we're not going to be able to decide how much time we get. I'll take whatever we're given and we'll maximize it.
Josh, the reason I brought up the Tom Osborne, Boyd Epley connection is that relationship between the strength coach and the head coach is one of trust, isn't it?
100%.
And you've been with Coach Norville now for a lot of years, so I imagine you guys have a good connection on what's optimum.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a ton of trust there from the core tenets we believe of what we're trying to build our programs around, to him trusting myself and my staff to be able to relay his message and use that weight room, use that field as a classroom to teach the overall culture of the program. Because really, then that is our number one job is just that. The bigger, faster, stronger stuff, that's a side effect. That's a barrier of entry. It comes along for the ride. When ultimately our number one goal is to be teachers and teach and instill that culture. And he puts a huge amount of trust into us to be able to do that, and likewise, we and I put a huge amount of trust in him that he's leading the program in the right direction, and we believe in the way guys are being coached and taught, and the direction the program is going. And then there's a lot of sounding board back and forth in between there, and when situations come up, of deciding what is best for our guys.
Kind of double up on what Jerry asked. A lot of people believe that the hiring of your strength coach is every bit as important as the hiring of your offensive defensive coordinator. So the trickle down effect is you have a staff of assistants. So those are pretty key hires. How did you go about selecting the guys that you put as your assistant strength coaches?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, because at the end of the day, there's absolutely no way that I can do this myself, and it's not a one man job. For a lot of reasons. Ultimately, for me, I'm only going to be as good as the guys that I surround myself with. And when the opportunity came up to come here to Florida State, I knew what kind of staff I wanted to put together. And I think everybody in this business, or maybe in any business that's in a position to hire people, you kind of always have a mental depth chart of who's available out there and for what level of position, and different strengths and weaknesses and things they can bring to the table. So basically, as soon as I found out that we would be coming here to Tallahassee, I knew what the timetable was going to be, especially with us starting school as early as we did. I knew we'd be on campus, here going, officially first day of work on January 3rd. So, it was a pretty short window of time to put a staff together. So kind of the way our situation was, I knew at the University of Memphis that my top assistant, Noah Franklin, was going to be able to get the head strength and conditioning job there. So obviously that was a guy that I knew, my right-hand guy wasn't going to be able to come with. So I knew that was going to be a role that I needed to replace. I had another guy on my staff there, Coach Scott, whose wife had just finished med school, doing her specialist residency, and they're getting ready to have a baby in February. So he was going to be leaving the profession anyways. So that was one more guy that was one of my right-hand guys I knew wouldn't be coming along. So that basically left two guys on my staff there that had roles to be determined. And I'm Matt and Coach Franklin. I talked a lot. I'm gonna take Coach Dowdy with me, and I'm gonna leave Coach Tokar's here with you, because he was in need of a right-hand guy that understood the program and stuff as well. And I want to leave him in the best possible situation to be successful there as well. So, I knew Coach Dowdy would be on board. Coach Jones at that time was at Incarnate Word in Texas. I was already working on hiring him at Memphis to replace Coach Scott. And so kind of in the middle of all that, I called him one afternoon and said, hey, listen, there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. Hang tight. Plan's not going to change. The geography is going to change, though. So just kind of stay in a holding pattern for a couple of days, and I'll get back with you. So I knew Coach Jones was on board. From there, I reached out to Coach Farniak, who was at Stanford at that time. I'd known Tom for a while. We actually recruited his brother at Arizona State, so I'd known their family for quite a while, and I'd always remembered their family because they were a South Dakota family, and there's only so many of us South Dakotans out here in this business. So he was a guy that I always kind of just knew of. The strength coach he played for in college is Yancey McKnight, who's head strength coach at Texas. Yancey's been a guy I've known professionally for a lot of years. So I talked to him about Tom. Tom actually came and visited us the year before when he was still at Louisiana Tech. So he was a guy I was really familiar with, a guy that I knew that I liked. He had some background in the sports science stuff and the GPS and using Catapult. I knew he would be a really good addition because that's a resource that we can maximize here. So reached out to him at Stanford, was able to extend him an offer. Leaving Stanford's not the easiest thing to do in the world, but we were able to make it happen. And then after that, I'm looking for my top assistant, which I knew was going to be a huge piece here. And, you know, I had plenty of guys that, you know, I've worked with in the past or guys that I know better than others. But it doesn't, I'm not the kind of guy that's necessarily going to make my decision based just, I know a guy, so I'm going to hire that guy. Had somebody reach out to me with a really, really strong recommendation for Coach Coleman. The guy that reached out to me is kind of a guy who's pretty opinionated, pretty critical, and tends to hate everybody. And he had nothing but gushing things to say about Lanier. So to me, that was that definitely told me that, hey, you got to make a phone call on this and have a conversation. So they had just been let go at Ole Miss. Things that were trending, like the strength staff was to be let go as well, which they were a few days later. Talked to him on the phone. He drove up to Memphis the next day, sat down, kind of had just an informal, just conversation about coaching and life and a lot of things. And, you know, left that conversation feeling really, really good about the kind of fit that he would be in our program. And then just kind of through happenstance the next couple of days, unrelated sources, you know, his name came up, and I ran to a handful more people that thought so highly of him as a coach and a man and those things. And all that told me was like, that's absolutely the right guy for this job. So I was able to get Coach Coleman on board, and so that assembled our staff, and you know, it was important for me to, you know, a guy's technical skills and his knowledge of the science and the background, all that stuff's important. At the end of the day, the number one most important thing though is who is he who are those guys as a man? What is their character like? Are they a teacher? Are they a relationship builder? Because if they can communicate and build strong relationships, that's the number one thing that makes our program go far and above anything else that we can put down on paper as far as the X's and O's of the training program go. And so I felt really, really excited coming here with, you know, in my opinion, a staff of real deal heavy hitters to be able to get this back to where it needs to be and be able to set the foundation of development the way that needs to be done here at Florida State.
Did you go ahead, Jerry? I think you had something.
I was just going to thank you, Coach, for taking the time with us today. We appreciate it very much.
I'm happy to sit and talk about our guys and about our program. I'm always eager to do that.